everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, and there is yet more wrestling news on this lovely Wednesday. So without any further ado, let's just get straight on into the headlines. First of all, The Revival have appeared on Talk is Jericho speaking about various topics, including why they left WWE and what they're going to do in the future. Next up, more recently released WWE Superstars discuss the possibility of wrestling in places such as AEW and New Japan. And finally, some of the Bullet Club members have revealed the original names pitched for their stable. So where else to start but with The Revival, or The Revolt as they are now known. Formerly known, of course, as Scott Dawson and Dash Wilder, now known, if I get this right, as Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. They talked about various different things on this podcast, and I highly recommend giving it a full listen, but one of the more interesting aspects was delving into the reasons behind why they left WWE. So Wheeler explained that they'd been talking for months about why they weren't happy in WWE and actually decided to ask for their release around Christmas 2018, as far back as that. And the key reason for this appears to be because there wasn't enough respect paid to the tag team division. Many people have speculated that's why the Revival wanted to leave WWE, and it seems to have been confirmed by the boys themselves in this interview. Wheeler also talked about the timing of asking for their release. They didn't ask for their release around Christmas 2018 when they decided they wanted to leave. They waited for a little while, but why? Well, let's find out. Wheeler said they decided to wait until they were on the upswing, so it didn't look like they were only upset because they were losing. He says they thought, let's wait until it's on the upswing and then ask. That way people know it's not just about us, it's about the tag team division as a whole. He says, we're still adamant that long term there's just not enough attention paid to the tag team division. There's so many good tag teams there all the time that I think could contribute so much more. We knew the tag titles were in our immediate future, and that's when we asked, because we wanted to make a point like, hey, we know things are going decent for us, they're going well all things considered, but we're not happy. He then went into some specific reasons why they felt the tag team division was indeed being disrespected. He said the tag team titles didn't really mean anything. He specified and said that this was nothing against Braun Strowman, but he specified the incident when Braun steamrolled the entire tag team division and obviously won alongside Nicholas at WrestleMania. Cash Wheeler actually specifies that as a big reason, a big indicator as to why WWE were not really interested in paying much respect to the tag team division. He also said that no tag team titles were featured on SummerSlam until the last minute when they added the women's tag titles, which he says he was in favour of, but it was the fact they were added so late on and nobody really knew what was going on. The Revival or The Revolt then revealed they asked for their releases in January 2019, but explained the whole thing dragged on for 15 months, and WWE did say to them they were going to make the tag team division a priority, so they decided to see out their contract. But he also pointed out that really they knew that that wasn't really the entire truth, and that probably the tag team division wasn't going to be made a priority, and really he says that they themselves worked really hard to try and make it so, but it just didn't really happen. They also touched upon that recently reported comedy gimmick that they were rumoured to have been pitched, with the silly outfits and the cartoonish getup and everything, and that turns out to be true. Dax Harwood says, I don't know if they actually wanted us, I think it was just the threat of us leaving when another company was getting a lot of buzz and a lot of press. I think they knew there was opportunity for us outside of WWE, and I think they just wanted to keep us away from that opportunity. They said the comedy gimmick though was Vince's idea, would you believe it? And Wheeler said, we had been trying for a while to get a meeting with Vince, but we knew it was going to be pretty unlikely because of the whole Fox transition, and the time was extremely hectic. Now, according to Cash Wheeler, they did eventually get a meeting with Vince, but it wasn't, the meeting they've been pushing for. It was instead Vince pitching them this weird comedy gimmick. He says, we went straight to Vince's office and sat down, and he handed us these big foldouts, and the first page is us as we are now, and then you open it and there were multiple different versions of their vision for what they wanted us to do. The pictures have leaked online now, they're out there, and they are 100% legit. They were handed to us by Vince McMahon himself. Wheeler then points out that they did agree to do that, which might be confusing because obviously we didn't see the Revival in this comedy getup on TV. He said, we looked at them, we said, here's the deal, these are bad, but we will do it until our contracts expire, but there's no way we're staying here past June when their contracts expired. Apparently they then got a call 5 days later saying they'd been pulled from TV, and Wheeler theorizes that it's because they'd agreed to do the gimmick, and the fact they'd agreed to do it kind of took away some of the jokes for the upper brass, like they didn't want to force this gimmick onto them anymore because they were willing to go with it, which is a weird way of managing people, I will say that. Now obviously Jericho also asked the Revival what they want to do now they've left WWE, and Harwood said there are so many tag teams out there that we want to work with, from Impact, Ring of Honor, AEW and New Japan. Some of the teams they specified were the North from Impact, the Briscoes from Ring of Honor, God from New Japan, Finjuice from New Japan as well. But of course, they also said they really want to wrestle the Young Bucks, and even described the Young Bucks as top of their list. Now, speaking of recently released WWE Superstars, it's going to be very interesting to see where everybody ends up. And one of those recently released superstars who has been talking recently was Curt Hawkins, who revealed where he'd really like to go in an interview with comicbook.com. Hawkins said, I mean, I obviously would love to work for AEW. I haven't missed an episode, I've watched everything from day one, I have a ridiculous amount of friends involved in the company, so I'm always rooting for them. He said he would never say never to anything, but he's really enjoyed AEW's presentation. Their no-fan presentation, in his opinion, has been a lot better than WWE's, and he says he thinks they're doing the best with this scenario. Hawkins also makes a really good point that before this pandemic, this lockdown, wrestling was on fire. He said there was so much opportunity everywhere, but he firmly believes that once this is all over and things get back to normal, wrestling outside of WWE can really thrive again. But Hawkins' interview was also very interesting, not just for himself, but what he revealed about other recently released WWE superstars, namely the Good Brothers, Carl Anderson and Luke/Doc Gallows. He said that himself, Zack Ryder and Gallows and Anderson have a group chat, and in that group chat it apparently seems as though the Good Brothers are very keen to get back to New Japan. That's not the most shocking piece of news ever, but it is an exciting one for fans of that tag team because that is where they really thrived. Now, Hawkins points out that Japan used to be a priority for him and he would still go probably, but he says now that he's got a family and stuff, it's not as high on the list of priorities. It's not something that he would drop everything to go and do. But he did say that in this group chat, all four guys had described a scenario where it would be ideal if both teams, Hawkins and Ryder and the Good Brothers, were all in Japan for the World Tag League. Now, of course, we don't know if the World Tag League is going to take place, but that's towards the back end of the year, so hopefully, if we look at it with a bit of optimism, things will be getting back to normal by then. Now, I don't know how likely it is now that Hawkins has said, you know, he's been to Japan with WWE, it's not as high on his list of priorities right now. I don't know how likely it will be to see Hawkins and Ryder over there, but as for Gallows and Anderson, that has to be the natural landing point for those two, you have to assume. And speaking of Carl Anderson specifically, he was recently a guest on Tama Tonga's Tama's Island podcast, and the two Bullet Club members, or former Bullet Club member in the case of Anderson, although you are Bullet Club for life, aren't you? Anyway, the two wrestlers had a bit of a chuckle when discussing originally pitched names for their now iconic Bullet Club stable. Tama Tonga said, did you know that Bullet Brigade was a thought, which I love. I think that wrestling history would be wildly different if the Bullet Club were called Bullet Brigade, guys, which just sounds a bit too chipper for a ruthless group of gaijin heels. But Tonga reveals he was approached with the name Bullet Brigade and didn't know any better and was like, whatever. But Bad Luck Fale did not like that, and from Tama's understanding, Fale thought of the Bullet Club name, and then Prince Devitt put it all together, and then that became the group's name. Prince Devitt, of course, for those unfamiliar with New Japan and wrestling outside of WWE, is Finn Balor. That's the name he went by before signing with WWE. Anderson said, I thought we were going to be the Bullet Brigade boys, but Gato actually wanted to call us The Real, because we used to say in our promos that we are real shooters. And Anderson says that The Real was almost actually the name they went with until Prince Devitt really rammed home this Bullet Club name that Bad Luck Fale apparently came up with. So I don't think I would have enjoyed if they were called The Real quite as much as I would have enjoyed them being called the Bullet Brigade. Part of me, a really dark part of me, really wishes that it had never been the Bullet Club and that it had indeed been the Bullet Brigade. I love that. I really wish that was the thing. I mean, they would never have met as much success as they did, but it would have been good for a bit of a chuckle, wouldn't it? And finally, some bad news now for fans of New Japan, especially fans of their constantly high quality Best of the Super Juniors annual tournament. There have been some legendary winners in the past, and most recently it's seen people such as Kushida and Will Ospreay and Hiromu Takahashi win the tournament and have some amazing 5-star matches along the way. But unfortunately, according to an official statement from New Japan Pro Wrestling, the tournament has been cancelled this year, which isn't too much of a surprise because it does usually take place in May, and it's May now. But it is still very disappointing. New Japan's statement reads, in response to the continuing pandemic and in light of the extension of state of emergency measures across Japan, New Japan Pro Wrestling has arrived at the decision to cancel all events on the Best of the Super Juniors 27 tour that was scheduled between May 12th and June 6th. They continue, we deeply apologise to fans who are looking forward to these events. Our thoughts, of course, are with everyone affected by this. As eager as everyone at New Japan is to return to the ring as soon as possible, the health and safety of our fans, wrestlers and staff, as well as society at large, is our utmost concern. They've also said they're going to offer refunds and they're going to keep everybody updated on events after June 6th and what's going on with them, if they're going to take place or not, which to me sounds like Best of the Super Juniors isn't just being postponed for later in the year, it's unfortunately being outright cancelled. So that's it for the news today. Thank you very much for watching this video, and there are 2 other news videos up on the channel today. It has been quite a hectic one. Thank you very much for watching. My match recommendation for this video is, it has to be a Revival match, doesn't it? Let's go with the Revival versus American Alpha at NXT TakeOver Dallas. What a great match, and yeah, I think it's a really enjoyable one. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.